Hey everyone, welcome back. So before we get into our next segment on coordinating the motions, I want to take some time and talk about our lower body shape. We don't actually have any principles that relate to our lower body shape specifically, but we do have some requirements that we want to meet in every single stance that we make. So the first thing we want to talk about is the weight in our footwork. We want to make sure that the weight is centered over what we call the bubbling well point. How do we know what that is or what that even means? Essentially, we want to make sure that the weight is even from front to back and left to right on the foot. So that means behind your big toe and your little toe, and then the ball of the foot and the heel. We want to make sure that that weight is even. We could also say there's 4 points behind the big toe and the little toe and both sides of the heels. This helps the weight be centered on our footwork and make sure that we have proper alignment in our knees. We always want our knees to follow our toe direction. So this will help with the weight being centered on our footwork. If our knee is towards the center, the weight's going to be on the arch of our foot. If it's towards the outside, it's going to be on the outer edge of the foot. We want to make sure that weight is centered at all times, and we want to make sure that our knee never goes over our toes. We want the knee over the ankle. How do we know that the knee is over the ankle? Well, if it's hard to lift your toes and it's hard to lift your heel, that means that your foot is velcroed to the ground and your weight is centered. If your weight is too far forward, you'll easily be able to lift your heel off the ground. Not enough weight and you can lift your toes. The other thing that we want to talk about is the space between our feet. Everyone should have about shoulders width apart between your feet. So this means that your feet is on 2 lines. We never want to see them on 1 line. We always want to see them on 2 lines in our bow stance. Now we do have other variations of our stances, including an empty stance. But right now we're just focusing on a bow stance and our parallel stance. So we want to make sure that we have shoulders width apart at all times. This is going to help with our stability. So we have 2 legs. We can create stability by stepping out from front to back, but we create stability from side to side by having this shoulders width apart stance. So let's review. Shoulders width apart. We want to make sure the knee is over the ankle, not over the toes, over the ankle, but following the toe direction so that the weight is fully centered on our feet. Okay. Now we have other variations. We have an empty stance. And on the empty stance, we have touching with our ball or touching with our heel. And then we also have a 1 leg empty stance, which is truly empty with 100% of the weight on our standing leg. So with our empty stance, we still want to make sure that our back foot is completely rooted and that weight is centered on the foot. But depending on the variation with the ball or the heel touching, that's going to kind of determine where the weight is on our front foot. Now, something to note is we never want our legs locked out. So whenever we lock out the joint, the energy stops right there. Even with our legs, we want to make sure we always include a little bit of bend, okay? I would stand up and show you, but I've still got a broken foot. So here we are just having a great discussion about this. So remember, bent but not bent, straight but not straight. Whenever we're touching the ground, we want to go heel or toe with bend in the knee. Okay, so empty stance and bow stance. Our bow stance, we have 60% of the weight in the front leg and 40% in the back. That nice angle from the heels all the way through the legs, through the crown of your head, leaning into it, except for our 3 variations where we have a vertical torso. Where do we see that? Well, we see it right away in the long form, ward off left. Then we have it in single whip and fan through the back. These are the only times in the traditional Yang family style of Tai Chi that we have a vertical torso. Every other time I want to see you leaning into a stance. This even means when we are in the backward position of a bow stance, we never want to lift and lean back. Then the energy is going to get caught in your chest. Okay, we want to make sure at all times energy is sinking down to our dantian. Remember our principles from our body shape, chest sinking in, back rounded. If you're leaning back, I can guarantee you that your chest is lifted. We want to make sure that we're sinking down, we're leaning into that supporting leg, and then we have that great breath all the way down through the belly. So we're always going to lean a little bit forward. Now for an empty stance, we're going to have 70% of the weight in the back and 30% of the weight in the front. That's not 0. So we are touching with the ball or the heel of the front foot, and we are pushing and supporting with that front leg. The only time we have zero is when we are in a kicking stance, and in that kicking leg or standing posture with our leg up, golden rooster on one leg, or our kicks, we want to make sure that still we are sitting up nice and tall, and again, we're not leaning back. Sit up nice and tall, perfectly vertical, and bringing that weight down to our legs. So there are a lot of requirements for our legs and how we bring in that alignment, kind of like essentials, but they're not actually named as essentials. The only thing that's going to vary from person to person is the length of your stance. So what does that mean? It's not the width. Remember, bow stance is shoulder width apart. Empty stance will be on one line, but we'll have one line with our feet on two sides. We're never going to cross. We're always going to have a little bit of space. And then the length is how far you step out. So everyone's going to be different, and every day is going to be different. The goal is, can you shift your weight back evenly and pick up your foot naturally without dragging your heel or jerking or even stepping out and falling into it? We want to make sure we're really moving slowly so we're getting that agility or ability to change and that balance that everyone is here for with Tai Chi. So this is how we get it, by focusing in on the alignment in our footwork. The last thing I want to touch on is the quad area, or what we call is crotch rounded enough. Why is this important? This is another opportunity for us to check in on our footwork. This means that our knees are in line with our toe direction. This is going to help bring strength to your legs, to your stances, and bring in that balance aspect. So when we're practicing, if you're sinking down, and as you sink down, your knee starts turning in towards the center and it's not staying directly in line with your foot direction, then I want you to stand up a little bit, because your crotch is not going to be rounded because you're losing that alignment in your knees and your footwork. So now you can see it's all related. Everything is related, and we're here to heal our bodies. We want to feel our best. So let's work on our alignment from the ground all the way through the crown of our head. So feet perfectly straight if we're in a parallel stance, knees always in line with the toe direction, waist relaxed, chest sinking in, shoulders down, and head lifting up. And then you have that great alignment to carry you throughout your day. Remember, Tai Chi isn't just about what we're doing while we're practicing. Tai Chi goes into every aspect of our lives, and we can really start to include all of these principles of practice in other activities that we do. So there's lots of opportunities to grow and learn and to really help heal our bodies on every level in everything that we do. All right. Well, that's it for today's session. I hope you found some valuable information, and I hope to see you again soon. Bye.